Have you ever just stopped and wondered where the internet keeps everything? I mean, really, everything. All the photos, the videos, the countless files that make up our entire digital universe. It feels infinite, right? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most fundamental and kind of invisible building blocks of the modern web, Amazon S3.
Seriously, think about it for a second. Every single photo you scroll past on social media, every movie you stream, every little file that makes your favorite apps work, all of it has to live somewhere. It can't just float around in the ether. So where does all that digital stuff actually go?
Well, it turns out that for a huge chunk of the internet, the answer is a service that acts like a gigantic, infinite digital locker. And that service is Amazon S3. So let's break down what that really means. Okay, so S3 stands for Simple Storage Service, and the name really says it all. Now, unlike a regular hard drive, with that whole folder inside a folder structure, S3 uses something called object storage. It's way simpler. You just take any kind of digital object, a picture, a video, a backup file, whatever, and drop it into this massive, secure, and basically endlessly scalable container.
And the whole system is, beautifully simple. First, you have buckets. These are your main containers, kind of like a top-level folder. Inside those buckets, you put your objects, which are the actual files themselves. And here's a wild fact. Every single bucket name has to be globally unique. That means no two buckets anywhere in the world can have the same name. Pretty crazy, right?
But here's where it gets really, really smart. Once you've got all your data in S3, you realize pretty quickly that not all data is the same. I mean, some files you need in a split second, and others, well, you might not touch them for a decade. Amazon figured this out and came up with different classes of storage to solve this exact problem.
And this just makes total sense, doesn't it? Why would you pay the premium price to store, say, an old family photo album you look at once a year with the same priority as the images that make up a website's homepage, which get hit thousands of times a minute? The answer is you shouldn't have to. And with S3, you don't.
So this table really shows you the trade-offs. Up at the top, you've got S3 Standard. That's for data you need instantly, like for a busy website. It's the fastest for sure, but it's also the priciest. Now, as you move down the list to things like Glacier Deep Archive, the cost to just store your data absolutely plummets. But the time it takes to get it back goes way up, from milliseconds to maybe even hours. It's all about matching the cost to how fast you actually need your stuff.
Now check out this number. This is mind-blowing. No matter which storage class you pick, you get this absolutely staggering level of durability. We're talking 11 nines. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means if you stored, say, 10,000 files in S3, you could expect to lose just one of them, on average, once every 10 million years. It's so reliable it's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, so we've established S3 is this vast, incredibly durable storage system. Awesome, but what does it actually do? How does it show up in the apps and services we use every single day? Let's take a look at how it powers the modern web.
The most straightforward use case is just thinking of it as the ultimate cloud hard drive. Companies and developers use it all the time to store their most critical stuff. Database backups, application logs, you name it. It's basically the digital version of a fireproof, floodproof, and time-proof vault. This one's super cool. S3 is so versatile, you can actually host a simple website directly from it. You can take all your files, your HTML, CSS, your images, and just drop them into a bucket. Flick a few switches and bam! You've got a live, fast, and incredibly cheap website running with no traditional web server in sight. And for all the really advanced tech like AI and big data, S3 is the perfect foundation because it can scale to hold practically unlimited information. Companies use it to create what's called a data lake. It's this huge landing zone for massive, raw data sets before their powerful analytics tools can dive in and start finding amazing insights. And finally, this is the one you interact with dozens of times a day, probably without even realizing it. Every time you upload a profile picture, post a video, or share a document in an app, there is a very high chance that all that content is being sent straight to an S3 bucket somewhere in the world. It really does power the dynamic user-generated web we all know. Of course, if you're going to store the world's data, you better have a good way to protect it. And with S3, security isn't some add-on or an afterthought. It is built right into its core. It's designed from the ground up to be a digital fortress. The key thing to understand here is control. We're talking about super precise, granular control. You can use something called IAM policies to define exactly who can get to your data.
Then with bucket policies, you control what they're allowed to do with it. Can they read it, write new stuff, or delete it? You layer on encryption to protect the data while it's sitting there and while it's moving, and you've got a seriously secure setup.
So when you put all of these pieces together, this statement really does hit the nail on the head. Whether you're storing a single family photo or petabytes of scientific research, S3 gives you the foundational tools you need to create a home for that data that's secure, endlessly scalable, and almost impossibly durable.
So you see, S3 isn't just a storage service, it's a platform for innovation. Really a blank canvas for creators and builders. The real question isn't just what is S3, but what can we build with it? It's one of those foundational pieces of the internet that makes so much of our digital world even possible. Thanks for diving into this with me.